Have you ever wondered why the top 10% of online stores are converting at 3 times the average amount? I spent over 1,000 hours breaking down that top 10% with other high traffic brands like Rode, On Running, and Acne Studios, studying every little thing that separates a $10,000 a month store to a $10 million a month store. And for the last 2 years, I've been applying that logic to our client sites, gaining them $50,000 to $150,000 in revenue per month. Common things like free shipping, quizzes, one-click upsells are great, but I'm talking about 6 specific patterns hiding in plain sight on stores you already shop from. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. These patterns fall under a new wave of hyper-personalization that social media and AI have created. As more traffic funnels through those channels, the end user wants a more tailored experience. Let's kick off to pattern number 1, iPhone content. Every brand has a use case on how-to iPhone styled content. This is typically 9:16 or 4:5 vertical format, with camera level app touch-ups at most. Brands that sell content-friendly physical products under $100 will naturally crush with this, since you're likely on TikTok Shop anyways. If you're more positioned into luxury or higher price points, there's still many ways you can apply this, and I have examples. And it all works because it's relatable. This content can either come from the customer directly, which is called UGC, or it can be made in-house a little more tastefully with a core team member. This is working best in women's e-commerce right now. And I'm going to be looking at Rode specifically right now. They have the classic, more editorial, high-end photo shoot type contents. They even have like these really nice comparisons here. They have 3D product mock-ups, but then they also have Hailey Bieber showing how to apply the product. A lot of touch points for these customers are going to be coming from social media, so it makes sense to have something like this. And in women's e-commerce, you generally need to have as much context that you can paint as possible for the product. Another example is Brandy Melville. I actually don't particularly like this website, but it's quite a big brand, obviously in the trend right now. And what they do interesting is that every single product shot essentially is UGC. It doesn't even look like there's camera level edits on this content. There's no product lay flats or anything. It's just purely on the demographic that's buying the clothes. Copen is a lot more tasteful. They're basically like luxury toothpaste. And again, what I like is this how-to style content, and it might not be shot on an iPhone. It definitely could be reproduced on an iPhone. There's really not anything crazy going on here. It's really just like these specific compositions that feel pretty natural and nice. Again, it's in that portrait ratio as well. Bershka is an example of men and women. They actually have a buy influencer section on their website. It's how to style the product, and they're doing it on these UGC models. They're even tagging the creators, which is interesting. But how it essentially functions is a shop the look. So you click on the model and you can see all of the products they're wearing in one screen here. A furniture brand called Floyd is also playing into this a little bit. Again, it might not exactly be shot on an iPhone, but it could totally be replicated. They have how to set up, which is very important buyer context when you're buying furniture pieces. And they do it in, again, 4:5 format, and it's kind of in this horizontal carousel here, and you can basically see the step-by-step. This is a client we have. They're called Ours. And while we didn't use iPhone level or UGC content on the product pages or anything, we do have a dedicated section and page for it. And this is essentially to bring awareness to the influencer program. So TikTok influencers, Instagram influencers drive tons of traffic to the website and tons of sales in general. And basically using the Shopify Collabs app, you can set this up in-house. And it's actually a pretty easy interface for giving influencers their affiliate revenue and stuff. So basically we can use that content to find relatability and drive people to this page in some way. I worked with another brand. His name is Artifactsing, and he's very community based, quite big on Instagram. Essentially what we did is, or what the customers do rather, is recreate the logo in many different mediums and formats. So we have like an application here on the website of all of those images they send. While this is a new format being explored on websites, there is some data we can attribute to it. And generally, like product pages specifically with customer photos or UGC content can raise conversion 25% to 160%. It's a very wide range. And again, like varies per industry and type of product. Let's go to the next topic, and that's advanced size guides. Size guides are something that have been around forever, but there's different levels of size guides, and the different levels are determined by the content your team can produce and manage. If I started a brand today, especially within fashion, I would double down on size guides. Honestly, these are like the one thing a clothing brand has to have, in my opinion. I'm going to show you what Acne Studios has done and how we've actually used that as inspiration on other projects. But I'm also going to show you what Vetsac does with furniture. So it's important to note, I'm an actual consumer of Acne Studios, specifically on their denim. But they actually have 2 functions I think are excellent here. They have the fit predictor, which basically basically saves a fit profile, and how you create that fit profile is basically based on other brand data. So I can pick Gucci, for example. I can pick their jeans, or they actually have different categories of clothing here. And then I can pick like the size I wear with that brand, and it basically converts it to the size I would wear with Acne. I think that's the most simple experience for a customer. I've done it in the past using measurements with height and body type and weight. This is so much easier than that. The issue is though that you actually have to have the data on how these other brands and categories that they carry actually fit. And then it all again gets stored in your own like fit profile. I think that's account based or maybe cookie based. The next piece is the actual size guide. So let's click into that. They have more of a dedicated page, an entire page layout for it. And there's really 3 pieces I think that are excellent here. Let's talk about the actual like line infograph on the left. This actually shows you how the measurements are measured. The goal of a product page is to essentially answer every question the customer has, and the size guide is a huge add-on to that. You have to assume the customer knows nothing. They have no idea how a waist is measured, an inseam, front rise, all of those things. And then what makes it excellent is that you can dynamically pick different sizes, and those measurements will change based on your selection here. But then you also see the size conversion table below. It's showing you basically different countries, how these sizes convert. So a size 48 in Europe is going to be a size 38 in US. But then it shows body measurements too, and then also goes from centimeters to inches, and that actually applies to the infograph and the table. It's not hard from a coding perspective. It's more difficult from a product setup perspective. So I've done stuff just like this in Shopify before, and entering every inch or every measurement for each piece is time consuming. And I think it's a lot easier generally when you have, like 50 products, 100 products even or less. When you have 100 products plus, you have to think, okay, who's actually maintaining and how much time does it actually take to set this up? And in my opinion, this is like the max level, the best size guide. That's mostly because you can add straight to cart from here. So you think about it, this is like a key customer decision, is knowing how the product actually fits them. So why not just seamlessly add to cart from there? Again, I've done this a lot in Shopify. 2 examples, and I'll show you. This is one of my first clients ever. We built pretty much that exact interaction with them. The downside is that it's one person and he didn't actually set it up despite having documentation. So let me show you another client where everything is managed by my studio, and we can go into sizing here, and I can see, okay, there's a table, inches to centimeters. These are technically 2 separate tables. This is how to find your measurements. This is something Acne didn't have, but I think is, very important context to have for a customer, because we're actually showing body measurements in this table too, which is a little more interesting, I think. And then again, like you can naturally check out from here. This is a new website that we made for a German-based client. They sell women's underwear, and let me show you kind of the fit predictor that we made. The issue is that their products don't really have traditional sizing. A lot of the core products have sizes 1, 2, and 3, which is not traditional for underwear. So having a size finder built in was really important to them to help basically convert new customers and help new customers understand their sizing system. So it'll actually like recommend you a collection that fits your size profile, but also lets you dynamically pick the colors for that product that are in stock and just add to cart straight from there. And it's a pretty seamless experience. We saw conversion and AOV increases. In the context of furniture, I'm going to talk about Vetsac. Furniture gets pretty deep and advanced. Vetsac actually doesn't make it that complicated. So in their sofas, for example, they just lay out dimensions in bullet points, some nicely formatted text, and then very simple visuals that are communicated here. The next level of this is something like IKEA that does AR, and they let you actually kind of see a digital version of the couch or whatever in your own physical space. To actually develop something like that, it's a lot easier nowadays, I think, with like Fable 5. The hard part though is actually getting all of the 3D assets and like modules of your products. And then you have to have some sort of backend infrastructure to host that, which is why Vetsac is probably like a $200,000 website, because they don't have that with dimensions. They actually have that for designing your own sofa. But that's a little off topic. Maybe it's not off topic, because they actually do have measurements here, and you can like pick your own sofa size. So you would know the size then. There's a lot of metrics that size guides really help with on stores. They reduce return rates generally 20% plus, because you think about it, you're more confident that the thing you're buying is going to fit you or the space you're buying it for. And really, like the majority of returns on any product is, especially apparel, is due to it not fitting correctly. That's actually 53 to 70% of the reason why people even return in the first place. Furniture return rates are 19 to 23%. And those are expensive returns because shipping is a lot more expensive. The impact of 3D or AR sizing tools is quite significant. It ranges from 25 to 64% in reduction of returns. And then conversion is lifted 15 to 40%. Let's jump into the next pattern, and that's called shipping protection. This is an interesting pattern that's also been around for a while, but there's some dark UX happening recently that I'm catching on to, which is in a gray legal area as of summer 2026. I first got attention from it from actually working with clients who were using this. And now there's like some examples of big brands getting a little darker with it. If you don't know, shipping protection can easily be a top 10 product, especially if you have these dark patterns I'm talking about. And in terms of setup, it's very easy. Any developer can do this. If they push you to use an app, I generally would just say, no, don't do that, because apps will take sometimes like 1% of your sales. And all you have to do is make a product in Shopify and then code the little UI to basically add the product. And then you got to have some sort of partner that offers like the shipping protection and insurance for you. Or sometimes brands just offer that service in-house too. Let me show you the safest, most legal pattern. This is with our client Hours. These are the first people that actually kind of brought it to our attention. And let me show you what we're dealing with here. So when you add an item to cart, you actually have the option to add shipping insurance down here. And that's a little toggle that's unchecked to begin with. When it's unchecked, the user actually has to click it to add it to their cart. If it was auto-checked, generally a lot of people are just not even going to notice that and then just click checkout anyways, which would be a dark UX pattern. When we redesigned Hours, they didn't really care about that 6-figure add-on. So they make their money in other places and just didn't want to deal with the legal trouble that could have caused. Fear of God is a brand I technically like a little bit of free consulting for. And as I'm recording this, I'm seeing, okay, they actually implemented some of the pretty simple changes I recommended to them. And this was from talking to the head of marketing there, who was very insight driven, and I actually thought it was a really great conversation. We actually talked about shipping protection specifically, and again, how it was like a top 10 product for their store when they had basically the shipping protection being added to cart without the customer knowing. And with the size of this brand is like, they definitely will get into some legal trouble. So they opted out for that. Now, when you add an item to cart, there's actually 2 checkout options. And I wouldn't say it's dark because they both have the same visual hierarchy here. They're both solid black buttons. And I feel like when you hit checkout with package protection plus $7 in this case, that's actually pretty clear and doesn't feel misleading at all. So I think this is actually probably a pretty good pattern in the middle of being safe legally and also, getting more money out of shipping protection. The most aggressive and dark pattern comes from Kai, which oddly enough, like I broke them down on my short form, and it seems like they've changed a few things since my critique online when it got like 200,000 to 300,000 views. So again, let's add a product to cart, and then you're gonna see, okay, I have these products in cart, and then you're gonna click checkout and just go. But the hierarchy is made to trick you essentially. While they technically probably do have it clear with checkout plus and labeling it here, generally customers are always tapping the solid buttons first because it takes more of a visual hierarchy. It catches your eye first and shows that the solid button is more important than just the outlined button. So a lot of people are probably pressing checkout plus naturally without reading all of this text, and then they're buying the $18 shipping protection, which is more than the other brands that we saw. And I assure you, this is a top 10 product in their store, this shipping protection is. I recommend something like Hours or Fear of God just legally. Kai probably will get away with it, honestly, because they're not the most well-known brand. While Kylie Jenner is the face of it and they probably get a lot of traffic, they're probably going to be okay at the end of the day. It just is something like when you learn it, it's like, oh, that's actually kind of, not like a good look, I think. And in the case of people I've worked with, it's easily been like 6 figures in revenue of just the shipping protection product alone for a service essentially they're already offering. So like speaking of Fear of God in that conversation, that kind of leads me into this next pattern, and that's having all of your product lines on the homepage. So this is a pattern that might seem obvious at first, but it's basically how I organize and set up homepages. And I got this insight from that discussion with Fear of God I was telling you about before. I think it's applicable to most brands. It's really any brand that has multiple product lines that they're offering. So let me jump back into Fear of God. Let's go to their homepage. They have 3 product lines, right? Essentials, athletics, and then like the Fear of God mainline luxury stuff. And it's very important that all of those product lines show up as a link on the homepage as a section or half section or something. Because they found that when they took one of those product lines off the homepage, there was directly a 30% revenue loss. So that logic was applied directly to Hours. And again, this is a project that we did this year. Their Blanks collection takes up pretty much the hero through like these kind of product categories. Their signature, their more bespoke collection is through product blocks and then like a shop collection link. And then their graphics collection is here split with the accessories collection. And then it's actually important to put in like other brand initiatives. Again, they have the influencer page, and then it's just the footer, the email collection. And this is generally just how I think of homepage design. In e-commerce, generally you get more traffic on collection pages, but sometimes brands will hit the homepage pretty hard too. That's a pretty quick and easy one. Let me jump into the next one, which is one of my favorites, and that's the personalization of product pages. Again, the content your team actually can produce and maintain really dictates what you have the ability to do in your web design. And that's kind of why a personalized product page works so well, because it's generally harder to do. So let's just jump into some examples here. Satisfied Running is the first brand that comes to mind. They have excellent web design and excellent product pages. So they're breaking up text walls into some concise chips. Think about this being an input in Shopify, and you have to manually, enter these 4 things for this one product, right? Then they have a little description that's probably just the normal Shopify description. But then there's temperature range that, communicates this visual here, like the range stepper, and then also a weather condition stepper as well. This is, again, like other fields you have to build in Shopify. And their temperature range even supports Celsius and Fahrenheit, which I would recommend, but takes more setup. And then they have these specifically placed videos and models. They have another description here. They have like a shop the silhouette look. They have the model's this tall, wearing a size medium. These are each, again, like inputs you have to have in Shopify. Those are called meta fields. You even have like the reflective detail shot has this like effect on it. And again, it has to be its own inputs where you put this specific image in this specific place on the product page. But again, like you kind of get this more personalized experience to the product. And I think, a layout and design like this helps kind of answer those questions the customer might be looking for. It definitely makes your product feel a lot higher quality, and you're showing like the good attributes of it a lot better. So this Satisfy was the exact playbook that we used for our products and forms. You can see the direct inspiration, and I know like how this is built. We built this in Shopify. So like we have the concise chips for readability. Again, these are all like individual. It's like basically like one input that carries a list of one-line objects. The temperature range is basically 2 tables in one, and it uses this very specific comma and spacing formatting to be created. But you have to enter it in twice, like a Celsius version and a Fahrenheit version, to make the conversion work. It's basically 2 separate tables. And then these are like optional tables you can easily add. Like you can make the content anything you want. You're not tied to the purpose or fit profile, but that's just what we're using in the context of this product specifically. We have delivery and FAQ, and like while we do have like a general template for these, if you want to override them for the product, you can totally do that. And then like you can see the Satisfy inspiration here, where we start to have it like, custom text, and then like specific model shots. We're using this. You can actually use photo and video here if you want. I want to show some products though have like a little bubble. We use the character to kind of speak to you in an interesting, unique way. Let's see if this product does this. Yeah, here. This is a customizable input on the product. And this was a store we did end of 2025. Very great conversion rate. I think it was like a 6%, which is insane. And then the email sign up rate was also massive as well, which is a different conversation. I want to talk about Bagu too. Some friends, Baggy Studio, made this website, and they did development on it, and I'm always like very impressed when I look at it. While I'm not the demographic buying Bagu, I'm a nerd for web design, and when I like a website, I generally like want to buy the product. So in the context of bag e-commerce, what people want to see is like how big the bag is and like what fits in the bag. And then here in Bagu, they have a section that's basically dedicated to that specific product and that pattern of that product. Here they're showing one model with the 3 different sizes of the product. Again, like these are all inputs you have to have. This is actually a headless store. They use something, CMS called Sanity, that's a lot more flexible than Shopify to do this. But they even have like, direct measurement profiles. They're showing you exactly like what fits in the bag. No images, unfortunately, but still extremely useful. And then they're just like giving you flat out measurements here, but also links to buy the specific size of the bag. I should have mentioned this for UGC. They actually show the Bagu in use here. While there's no clicking or linking function, this is still like really nice buyer context to see how people are styling and using the product. Again, though, like it's an input you have to fill out for the product specifically. I'm going to keep emphasizing that because like people don't really think about that when they design something like this. And then they have like the typical upsell and stuff. stuff. But yeah, this is like a great, very customized specifically to this pattern of the product, or at least like the model of the product. Let's go back to Rode just one more time. They go very deep with this product page customization. So we talked about the kind of everything above the fold-ish. There's a ton of content on here. And I think it really answers every question you would ever have about the product. They're showing you different shades here. They're showing you specific specs and like awards that the product has won, different imagery and stuff. They're showing you kind of different functions of it here in this kind of editorial section. They're showing you how to like even use the product and how it works with like your specific skin and stuff, ingredients of the product, how it fits into your routine, and like some testimonial trust proof stuff. This is a lot of content to maintain, and it's generally entered individually for this product specifically. So I have to imagine if you go on their Shopify, click on their product, you're going to see like dozens of inputs to customize it. They even have an FAQ specifically for this type of product, and FAQs are really good for LLMs if you didn't know. But there's just tons of imagery too happening, right? Not just text content. Whoever maintains this store, like to kind of achieve this, you have to have all these different, I think like templates in Figma or Photoshop, and probably like an outline of the product page to really know like what's being placed where on the page and where to input things, which is like a dev design problem that I run into all the time. So we actually have to do that. Let me show an example quick. So this is just in Figma, but you can see it's for that forms project I showed earlier. And this is just like a pretty quick example of, you know, where every single meta field for that product in Shopify is being translated to essentially. And this was something that was very helpful for me and the person I was working with to like visually have things mapped out. So I'm going to talk about the last pattern. I think it's like getting more common, and it was the first use case for AI, but let's talk about AI powered chatbots. Most people don't know the implications of setting up a chatbot. I've had many discussions with brands about this. The issue is the data storage. It's an open input generally with AI chatbots, and customers can technically put anything they want, the color of their hair, their bank account information, and generally like a good experience has a chat history, and you have to think, okay, where is that data being stored then? Can I even be storing that data? There's a whole legal rabbit hole to go down. So generally I recommend using a third-party app. The most popular one I think recently is called Gorgias, I think is how you say it. I'm not affiliated, but I'm actually going to be setting this app up for another store this month with it. And then there is custom solutions you would do at like a higher level, and I'll talk about that too. And why you'd even want a chatbot is that there's a 3 to 10% conversion lift, a 40 to 60% reduction in support tickets, which ends up saving you money and time with your team, and then a 5 to 15% AOV increase on assisted orders. I just talked about Stussy in another video, but they have a chatbot like pretty low key embedded into their product pages, and it really just answers like fundamental product and like logistic questions. They use the Gorgias app. Again, it's that third-party app I'm not affiliated with, but it's very nice. You can basically feed it data about your products in store. Margiela used to use this app too, but it looks like they kind of moved away for whatever reason. Definitely probably is a lot of setup and maintenance behind the app, I assume. And then On Running is obviously a very massive brand. They have more resources to do something like this. They have their own custom ChatGPT instance. From this POV, you can kind of customize the experience to be a little bit better. You're not limited to some app design or anything. It looks like they have like pre-selected widgets, which you can click on and basically enter like a pre-defined prompt for you, which is very nice. That's something you'd want for like your most common questions you would get probably. Generally like in these chatbots too. So I worked on one. My first job was at a bank, and we had a chatbot when I was there. We launched the chatbot, and like the rating and getting feedback is absolutely crucial to this experience. So like you really want to know if your chatbot's not working so you can like fix it essentially. But then it has like the classic open input that you can just basically type anything. This is technically an app being hosted somewhere else, and this data again is being hosted somewhere else. On Running has resources to do something like this, but this would be a very fun project to do. And there's a measurable return that you could actually take back to your team and saying, hey, like we can do this thing, and we'll have these metrics that I told you about at the beginning of this pattern. So those are patterns you can take back to your team or take to your designer or developer developer. And hopefully you can have a lot of success with these. I think generally all of this stuff is data informed and stuff I've applied to my own projects for the most part. If you want to work with my studio, it's called Shovel. We work with brands in the $1 to $20 million a year range, e-commerce focused. We have a good specialty in Shopify, all-in-one native, and even like headless as well. And we have 3 core services: branding, web design, and development. If you want more information, go to shovel.studio. And if you just want to learn more about education around this space, my YouTube channel has a lot of information. My Instagram has a lot of this information where I break down websites, talk about trends and insights and stuff like that. So make sure you subscribe.